Tech Team Weekly.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Tech Team Weekly, your regular roundup of the technology news that's affecting our teams and your teams. I am Neil Studd, your voice of quality, which makes me sound like I think I'm the best podcaster, but I represent the testers in the industry. I'm joined as usual by Sanjay Paswani, the engineer. Hello Sanjay.
Hey Neil, thanks a lot mate.
And also with Gwen Diagram, our manager.
Hello.
And we've got a busy episode as usual this week. We've got all our usual segments. We're going to go through the stand-up to begin with, telling you what we've been up to this week and covering off our social engineering, everything that's been happening on the Twitters and the LinkedIns. Our epic this week is related to something we've all been feeling the pain of, which is bad practices on using things like Slack and Teams and how that ruins our productivity. Then we'll go into some news bites, some news in brief. There's a lot of security news again this week. And then we've got our contest. We've got another contest from Cook My Grub, who are going to be offering a £20 Amazon voucher to one of our listeners. So that's what's coming up. We're going to try and do this nice and tight today. It'll be interesting to see how we manage to make this tight when I'm the one who has the worst lag. But let's go for it, shall we?
The stand-up.
Only a couple of quick things. I'm a very impulsive person, so I just woke up on Monday morning feeling like, okay, what I need right now in my life immediately is a job right away. Do it. So, like my OCD kicked in, and then I just wanted to overdrive getting a job. And I can't. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to say anything right now. But I think I have a job that I like, and hopefully by next week I'll be able to announce it. Pretty excited about that. And the PDD automation piece, which I'm meant to be taking care of, I'm still taking care of. I just haven't had any time this week, but I will do it.
Cool. Congratulations
on the job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you both.
I'm so excited for you.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's going to be really tiring when you first start because it's been a while since you've.
Yeah.
But it'll be excellent. So it's been a pretty hardcore week for me. So I've had interviews for a new line manager, which has been really nice. And then we had a live bug being like really tricky to track down. So lots of stuff around that. And I spoke at Test Automation Days, the Code Red edition, which was really nice. And then I had a really nice time on Friday night hanging out with one of my old engineering manager colleagues to sort them out, to help them sort out a proposal to get some testers into their workplace, which was like really fun because like I used to be a principal test engineer and I'm like, I actually know this kind of stuff. So it's always nice to work on something that, next week, I'm going into the office for 2 days to scope out what it's actually like. I'm quite scared of the office, but people want to go into the office. So I just want to make sure that it's like the most comfortable that it can be for the engineers. And there's places where they can like work together in teams that they're in and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting. I might take some of my plant babies in because I have a lot of plant babies. And doing a lot of strategy stuff. So I won't be doing any testing. Next week, I usually do a little bit of testing, like just to keep my sanity and keep my fingers in the product. And because it's fun, we all like working on the product bit. So and that's me. Neil, tell us your secrets.
Well, most of my secrets are no longer secrets. There was a huge new release of Postman that came out on Thursday, which is version 9. That's been under wraps for a little while, but there's a lot of stuff there focused on improving the collaboration experience, particularly within an organization. So we now have the concept of a private API network, which is a lot of the power of the public stuff that's already built onto Postman, but private to within an organization. So to help you do things like source control within your APIs and that sort of thing. It was, let's call it a fractious release, in as much as one of the major components of it did have to get factored out for time. So consider this an exclusive. There's a 9.1 is on the way reasonably soon. It's going to have another huge thing in it. So the work hasn't stopped as such, but it's been very busy. The company gave the whole test team Friday off last week, which was brilliant, to say thank you for the work that we put in. Although interestingly, Sanj also shared an article that was written by Christopher Wink, which I will link in the show notes, which specifically says that days off are nice, but they, if they're covering papering over the cracks, then they shouldn't be used to disguise problems in the process, and I don't think they are. We've got a new head of quality who is giving us this as a gesture, and we're going back in strong on Monday to do a retrospective about how the release went, and how we can work together better as a team. So good times ahead, I think. Also on the Postman front, I am doing a large webinar this coming Wednesday. It's called Continuous Quality with Postman. You can register online for it. There's a link on my Twitter feed if you have a look. It's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, so excited for that. Also just got accepted for a conference talk, my first online conference talk. I can't say what it is yet because it's not gone public yet, but finally dipping my toes into the online conference world. Finally, 2 follow-ups from last week. I mentioned James Bond tickets going on sale, and they went on sale last Monday, but I didn't know when they were going on sale. I solved the problem with automation. I wrote a script in Postman, which basically watched Cineworld's API until it saw that tickets were on sale, and then it pinged me on email immediately when they went on sale, which is good that I did, because Cineworld actually put them on sale late Sunday night, like 11:15 on Sunday night, which nobody was expecting, which means that I was able to get the midnight screening, the IMAX, center seat, halfway back, just where you want to be. So automation win. Delighted by that.
Awesome.
Apart from that, obviously, I've got my continuing Peloton obsession. It's fair to describe it as an obsession. I think I said last week that I did 100 miles in my first week. I put on another 250 miles this week. I mean, it's good. It's good to be finding myself using it too much, because it's the opposite problem that I've always had with exercise, where I could never be bothered before. Having to scale myself back is a good position to be in, I think. But tired legs.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
250 miles. Madman.
You don't feel it. They're all like 20, 30 minute sessions.
I think we thought you were a cyborg from the future, but actually I've revised my opinion. I think you're actually Hercules. You have the strength of 10 normal people, mental and physical.
Well, I'm not going to try flexing yet or anything, but there's quite a lot of like strength stuff. There's weight stuff in there as well. So who knows? I might need a widescreen monitor if I keep going the way I'm going.
That'd be awesome to see you all pumped and jacked on steroids.
Social engineering.
So a couple of episodes ago, we talked about an article which was, why is it so hard to get a job as a software engineer? So we actually had the author of the article reply to us on YouTube, which is awesome. So Kurt Korzinia said he really enjoyed it. That's a pen name, by the way. It's not this individual's actual name, whoever he or she may be. They go on to say the episode and maybe 95% of the comments on Medium Reddit have responded to the topic more than the article itself, which is fine, probably better even. I think it's an interesting topic worth discussing. And I think we found that as well. Then from last week's episode, Kristen said it's the team that's responsible, not an individual. It's the worst sort of blame culture to fire an individual for a mistake that was not due to negligence. Look at the people giving someone that power first. Yeah, I think, that he echoes what we said last week as well. Louise on LinkedIn said some of us Dead Happy folk are spending the weekend of the 24th September at Dead Northern Film Festival in New York, which sounds super exciting. Can't wait for all the jump scares. This is a really awesome company that we know people who work there, and I was catching up with them. And sorry, just a little minor plug for them. They're looking for a senior software engineer right now in the kind of React Node kind of space. It's a really awesome company. It's a great opportunity. It's mostly remote, I think, and they're based up in Leicester. That's where their main office is. But you should check them out. Might be an interesting one. Andy B says he misses me. I miss him too. Neil wants to interject. Go ahead, Neil.
Sanj, and Andy did say, the message was like, miss you, mate, or something. He said, I should point out, Sanj, I also work with Andy at Compare the Market. I actually was one of the team that hired him. So he may be saying he misses me.
I don't know. I think he misses me more. Maybe we should have an Andy off.
Who does Andy love more? I like this game.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's win Andy's heart. Kev wants us to make Bus Sim happen. I think that's still on the cards. We'll definitely keep trying to make that happen. We'll do something along those lines. Thank you to the friend of the show, Sarah O'Connor, and a very good friend of mine for sharing. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone else as well. And thank you to our latest Patreon, Ash.
Yeah. So that's Ash Winter. That's my partner. That was a total surprise when we got the notification through on Slack. So I've thanked him in person But also,
Nice.
thank you, Ash. We really appreciate it. Ash has
Yep.
his own podcast as well. What's it called? It's
What a lot of things.
oh my God,
What a lot
this
of
is-
things, I think.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, so Ash does a podcast with one of our mates, Ian, and Ian has one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. It's a very deep, like London voice. So yeah, if you're looking for another podcast, check out What a Lot of Things. It's really good. So yeah, cheers, Ash.
We've also said that we're going to
Cheers.
start putting
Sounds
out
great.
Patreon content when we get to 10 patrons. So if we get to 9 and it's on the edge, maybe we can get Ash to unsubscribe if we don't want to do content. We could use him as our buffer.
It's a good plan.
So I guess we'll go on to building in public and podcast-driven development next. So what's been happening in the world of like followers and watchers and subscribers? So we have 157 followers on Twitter and we have 156 followers on LinkedIn. So they're like pretty much the same now. And yeah, so we've gotten a few more subscribers on YouTube. So we're at 56 subscribers now. We had 84 views on YouTube for our last episode and 15 listens on our podcast channels. So thanks for all the follows and the watches and the listens. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're being very careful to make sure that we let the podcast feed listeners and the YouTube listeners get a similar experience. But those numbers, they show that literally like 84% of our listeners are on YouTube. So I think that does give us slight remit to do things like the bus simulator episode, which will be slightly more visual. But yeah, it's really interesting to see that appears to be the way our numbers are shaking out. We're a YouTube podcast. Who knew?
Ben Dowen said that like the reason why he watches on YouTube is because we post the link of the YouTube one, and that will be because I'm very biased towards YouTube, I imagine. So we're going to start posting the link to our website, which has like all the podcasts and like all the different ways that you can listen. So yeah, we'll see if that makes any changes when we post it next Monday.
I love YouTube as well, so I'm right behind that. But actually, interestingly, we haven't been getting many requests from our audience around PDD, podcast driven development, not this week anyway. So if you have any questions for us, like you want to know what's going on behind the scenes or why we're deciding things we're deciding, please keep them coming.
Totally, give us a shout.
I think even if we can't meet up in person, we should take the podcast effectively on tour. We should each record in a different location one week, just over the house.
So I'm going up to Arran in Scotland in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to have to see how it works when I try and record from there. But that'll be quite nice. I cannot wait. I have been wanting to go to Scotland since the start of the pandemic. And I'm like, I think now is the time. So it'll be great.
Awesome.
I'm predicting if you're recording from Arran, I won't be the one with the worst lag for a change.
I imagine it's quite a small place, I've heard. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. It might be a bit hairy.
This week's epic.
Our main story this week comes courtesy of wired.co.uk, who have been looking into the struggles of remote communication. According to the professional services firm Sigma, remote workers are losing around 10 hours a month to pointless online conversations and impromptu interruptions on collaboration platforms like Slack and Microsoft Teams. The Wired article called out a number of bad practices that workers have observed, including being tagged in messages with no context, misunderstandings caused by a lack of visual cues, not knowing whether colleagues are truly available, and having to juggle multiple communication platforms. The result? A more frustrated and anxious workforce who are having to work longer hours to make up for lost productivity, with Sigma's survey finding that 18% of British workers are finding it harder to switch off. I don't know where to start here. It's going to be a series of rants, I feel, but Gwen, I'm going to start with you as the other person here who's currently in the workforce. What's your experience with messaging platforms like Slack?
So I adore Slack. I grew up with IRC from the age of 10. And when Slack became popular, I was like, this is my childhood. This is perfect. However, other people did not grow up with IRC from the age of 10. And so they kind of don't understand that you're not always there. My most hated feature of Slack is the ability to call within Slack, and people making phone calls at random moments that they don't check that you're there. They just start calling you, and I don't know, I walk around a lot. And so, yeah, I'm not always at my desk. I need to think about things. So I'm walking around, I've gone outside, or I'm in the toilet or whatever. And it's oh, sorry, I was at the toilet. Why are you calling me? Message me first, and check that I'm there. God damn it.
Yeah,
But that's my most hated thing.
if you think about the equivalent behavior in the office, that would be like someone walking over to your desk, grabbing you by the arm and taking you into a meeting room without telling you who else is in there, what the meeting's about. It's no, you wouldn't do that. I think some people, as you say, are maybe not familiar with the concept of this kind of digital communication, and it throws them for a loop. Because the other big one So Beth Marshall mentioned that. She said she ran a LinkedIn poll asking about whether unannounced video calling is okay. She got 100 odd responses. 47% of people said it was never okay, although 39% of people said it's okay within my team. So I guess if you've got a close-knit group who are working on things and you want to be able to collaborate in almost real time, then sometimes that is acceptable for some people. But Haroon on Twitter also said people who press the call now button without asking if we're free first is a real pain. The other big no that I see people doing a lot, that I've experienced myself. I've put together a page. There's a page on my blog called the Communications Readme, which is, this is the way I like to communicate with people and be communicated with. And I think it's really useful for people to put this together. I'll put a link in the show notes to my Readme. But one of the big bugbears is people who send you a direct message just saying hi. Again, this is people who they're trying to do it in an old-fashioned communication style, like a hi, and then you get a message back saying, how are you? It's no, you've broken my flow once by interrupting me. If you're going to break my flow, let me know what's going on. And you can do that in a polite way, in a friendly way, but get to the point.
I agree with a hi as well. There's a few people I know who always just do with a hi, or hi, Sanj. And then I'm just waiting 10 minutes for them to go, yeah. And what?
There's the really good, so what was the website that I found? Oh, nohello.net, that you can send to people like that, which has, examples of people from the television show The Office, and saying hello, and it's what do you want? You've wasted so much time. It's just really frustrating. The thing is, as well, is younger people don't do phone calls anymore. If someone calls you, it scares the hell out of you, because it's an emergency, isn't it? No one will call you unless it's an emergency. When do you call your partner? I'm locked out of the house, please help, or whatever. And you have everything on silent anyway, because you don't want that noise. And so, yeah, you also don't want that noise from Slack.
The other big one that I had a huge bugbear about, that I think I circulated when we were at Compare the Market, which is, the younger days of these communication platforms. People who use the @channel in a Slack channel, which pings at hundreds and hundreds of people, even those who are on holiday, when you've also got things like @here, that is a really good one that you could use, because it's specifically people who are active, rather than slamming messages onto everyone's devices. And it's just FYI, because people don't really know, @channel is everybody, regardless of where they are. Obviously, you could self-manage your notification preferences, and I think more and more people are doing that now. But the power or the danger of @channel. I came up with the concept of, I said people should have to pay to use @channel, like a penny per person you want to contact, so that you if you want to do it in a channel of 5 people, then great. But there's 1,000 people in there. Stop doing @channel, because the amount of people who are losing productivity with that.
I found that to become a lot rarer. People don't use @here and @channel like they used to. So about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago on Slack, it was a lot more common, but just not so much anymore. I guess people are understanding this affects me as well, and I hate when people do that.
But what is this obsessive thing we all have of needing to clear all of our Slack notifications? It's you can't resist. It's like Candy Crush.
So it's really funny, because in my emails, I usually have at least 5,000 unread emails, and I couldn't care. My emails, emailing me is the worst way to contact with me, because it has the lowest chance of me replying. If you have me on Slack, that's the highest way. But yeah, Slack, I always clear my notifications, because Usually it's something important. With email, it's like not as important. Yeah. Email, usually people are asking things of you. Slack, people are usually telling you things that are of your interest.
The challenge on Slack is when you're a member of, let's say, 40 or 50 channels at least, which certainly I am at the moment. It turns into a game throughout the day of like whack-a-mole. Like I tend to only go back to Slack maybe at certain times, like every half hour or an hour, or when I'm at a natural break, and I clear them all off just because I haven't got time to sit there all day looking at everything that's going through. And ironically, I mentioned that we had the day off at Postman from the quality team on Friday. I didn't discover that until lunchtime because it was buried in a channel that I hadn't looked at for a while. And like, it was a long message and I didn't get to read that until lunchtime. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not even supposed to be working right now.
That's hilarious.
Nice surprise though.
We've got a like engineering announcements channel, which is quite precious, where only important things go in there for like, so if you're coming back off holiday, instead of having to read like loads of stuff, it's just like, okay, these are the like important things you need to know. And because we've got a few part-time people, that's really helped there as well. Like the rest of the stuff, it'll be like stuff that's happening that day. Engineering announcements is usually more kind of permanent stuff.
Yeah,
and I think, let's not play favorites. It's not just Slack. There's like Teams and like Skype and this and that. There's a whole bunch of them, right?
And I think they're all improving, particularly in the pandemic, now that everyone is using them all the time for everything. They've had to find ways to be more efficient, and they are certainly aware of the disruption that they can cause in people's lives. So there are really useful features in there, like particularly where I work, where teams are all over the world. If you're sending someone a DM, as you're typing it, it will remind you of what their local time is. So, if you're sending someone a message, but it's 4 a.m. for them, it will warn you of that. But it will also tell you if they've got their notifications snoozed. So, I can send a message to someone at 4 a.m. if I know it's not going to disturb them, and it will be there for them later. Or certainly on Slack, you can now schedule messages and say, actually, send, I'm going to bed now, it's the end of my day, but send this to this person first thing in their morning, so that it's not bugging them as they log on. Because that's the one thing that panics me most, is if I send something to someone when it's out of their hours and they happen to see it, and they feel the need to jump on and do that work, and I feel like I've caused them to take time out of their personal time to do stuff. So I'm like, no, if I could schedule that so that it appears during their working hours, that's a lot better.
It's been really nice at my company. They've set it so notifications are turned off between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. So the entire channel, the entire company is set on snooze, and it's such a nice touch. Yeah, because then people who are like doing something a bit later, it's like, doesn't matter because no one's going to see it. Like, yeah, which leads on to that thing of people working later hours. And that means that other people feel pressured too as well. But that's a whole nother topic. Sorry.
I really loved all the feedback we had from our audience. It's really good to see, this menu of things that annoy or inconvenience people, right? But I have a confession to make. I feel like I do most of these things. So I'm going to take that on board to try and not do these things.
I think the way that I use these tools has changed a lot over the years. So I definitely would have said hi, like maybe 5 years ago before saying anything. But then over the years, you get more and more used to it, don't you?
We had a comment from Dan Billing, which is interesting because Dan, a good friend of mine, actually works for Microsoft. So he is using Teams because it's a Microsoft tool. I asked him just to basically say, how does he roughly find it, and he said on a scale of 1 to 10, he reckons they're using it at a solid 6 or 7 of efficiency, which for a messaging platform, 6 or 7 is really good, because I think a lot of us want to burn them to the ground sometimes. We also had some feedback from the Eng manager on Twitter, who said, as Sam said earlier, there's a danger sometimes that it turns into a game of trying to clear all the notifications rather than dealing with what's important. And Simon Pryor added that if someone adds you into a group chat without any prior context, that can be really annoying, because you have to either read back to try and work out what's actually important, or why you've been asked to join the conversation. And he suggests that actually, if you want to bring a new person to the discussion, start a new discussion and start from scratch with, here is the pertinent information.
The long Slack threads, like usually it will be long Slack threads that you need to read through in those kind of situations as well, isn't it? So I think that's a really good point, just summarizing what's going on. I like that.
News Bytes.
So, first up in News Bytes, there was a really interesting article I found on TechCrunch. This is about the usefulness or importance of developer relations or developer relations team. There's a lot of, you can call it the developer advocates, developer evangelists. I think they're slightly specialist separate roles, but there's, if there was a Venn diagram, there'd be a lot of crossover here, in terms of what they can provide and the functions that they fulfill. The article says that a good DevRel is there to support internal developers and community members to ensure good experience. These community connections can result in crowdsourced solutions to problems, loyal users, and even product features, which is absolutely right. But one of the things that I would hastily point out, and they do as well, is like, let's not all jump on fads. I think a lot of the problems we have across the industry are when they see, like a Microsoft or a Google or a Pivotal or whatever doing something, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, let's do that, or let's adopt that. So, you've got to figure out if this is something for you or not. They say DevRel can't really be boiled down into a monolithic function or specific role. Where the DevRel team sits in terms of department or org tells you how its goals should align to the business and what will be seen and measured as a success. For developer-first and product-led companies, developer relations programs help complement the self-serve growth engine through content and brand building. And for more traditional sales-led companies, these programs help build bottom-up awareness and adoption so that not just the conventional decision makers, but also the actual users and practitioners of the technology can weigh in on technology decisions, which is so true. And, the big three things that this function does is improve awareness, enablement, and engagement. Usually a DevRel team or an evangelist or advocate team is seen as being a little bit more trustworthy and someone that isn't necessarily out for their or the company's best interest, but rather the user or the internal developer. It's great at increasing sales and retaining talent. This was a really interesting article, actually. I mean, we could talk for a long time about it. This is something I'm really interested in, and we'll pop the link in. So if it's something relevant to you, then, maybe check it out.
I really love when you run into developer relation people at conferences, because these people go to so many conferences and they know the conference scene like nothing else. So they always have loads of friends there, and they're just so fun to hang out with. I don't know, it's a really cool role, and they can add a lot to conference scenes as well, I find.
Yeah. The DevRel team is probably the main reason that I ended up working at Postman, because they are the most visible outside facet of the company. They do a lot of the organizing of live streams. They do a lot of supporting people who are creating Postman related content. So like Beth Marshall's recent Test Automation University course wasn't pushed on her by DevRel, but they were very much aware of what's going on, pushing people that way, finding people who can help support the creation of that content. Because the more that you can sow that information out and have people who are passionate advocates for your product who don't even work for your company, that's a really good way of building this cycle of people who are interested in your product.
I before I yield the floor to you, Mr. Stud, I just have one sad bit of news to not announce, but remind everyone of. So Sir Clive Sinclair dead at 81 just a couple of days ago. Very, very sad news. But he leaves behind a massive legacy, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and certainly people like him. Of course, if you think back to like the Sinclair ZX81, I was reading the Wikipedia article and I was like stunned. The original price of the build it yourself kit was 50 quid back in like 1980.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things about moving from Australia to the UK is all the early computers were very different. So we didn't have ZX Spectrums in Australia. We had Dick Smith System 80s and stuff like that. So I had to learn, because people refer to them a lot, like they'll be like, oh, I used the BBC Micro at school. And sometimes it's the same thing, but it will have different names. But like having to match up what they were and stuff like that. Really wild thing that you don't really think of when you move countries, that the kind of like retro computer systems were completely different. It
makes sense. I'd never really thought of that, but there wasn't really the late 70s, early 80s, there wasn't global commerce in the way that there is now. So as much as Clive Sinclair was one of the UK's great innovators, these people are popping up all over the world. I'm going to have to go and look into the King Smith, did you say?
Dick Smith, System
Dick
80.
Smith.
Yeah, Dick Smith was a really huge celebrity in Australia. I assume similar to Sinclair was. So he used to do these really good April Fools. So, I mean, we've always had big droughts in Australia, and one of his April Fools was he was going to get an iceberg and bring it up to Australia. So go down to the Antarctica, capture an iceberg, bring it back up and solve the drought and all this thing. And I think he actually got a huge plastic iceberg to do it. That was a long time ago, but yeah, quite a madman.
Speaking of things that sounded like April Fools but weren't, we were talking off air before we start recording about the Sinclair C5, which was one of, I think it's historically treated as one of the biggest flops, but again, I think he just innovated ahead of his time. It's a personal electric vehicle that just no one could quite classify. It wasn't allowed to be road legal, but it was also so massive that you couldn't ride it on the pavement. And I think the world is screaming out for something like the C5 to make a comeback.
That was a brilliant little invention and so ahead of its time. You know, at my last job, I used to spend an hour each way sitting on the North Circular, and like everyone's just sat in, one person to a car. And I'm always like thinking we could all just be on like little motorbikes or something and save so much time and space. Yeah,
totally.
Let's do it. I'll tell you what, if we get to 100 patrons, let's reinvent the C5.
All right. You got
I would love that.
We'll do a Kickstarter.
Yeah. Right, moving on to my story then. Here's one to be aware of if your team has any public Travis CI repositories. Last week, the team patched a major security issue which potentially caused secure environmental details, including signing keys, access credentials, and API tokens to be leaked. All that needed to happen was for somebody to fork your repository and then trigger a build, at which point the secrets from the original project were temporarily visible in the build chain. There has been criticism of Travis's slow response to the discovery, with the problem continuing to exist for 3 days after it was responsibly disclosed to them.
Oof.
And Travis's final response was, well, you should be regularly rotating your secrets anyway. And so if you haven't done that already, now's a particularly critical time to do so. Gwen, I know you were freaking out when you saw this.
So thank you so much for covering this, Neil, because I was really torn. Like there were two stories I really wanted to cover, and they were gaslighting people by saying, you should be regularly rotating your secrets anyway. So why didn't you do that, losers? But it's like, what? You've got this massive security bug. You are rude. You are very rude. Yeah, I just think that they are incredibly rude with their response, and that they should fix their security problems. Leaving it 3 days, rude and irresponsible. I have a lot of feelings about this.
Yeah,
this is quite a big deal, right?
It's a huge deal. It's massive. People's secret. It's not just all of people's secrets just leaked. And so did you say that you used to like using a lot Travis CI a lot, Sanj?
Me? Yeah. I mean, I've used several CI platforms, and I quite like Travis. It's fine,
How does this affect your, would you still use them after this, do you think?
I mean, can lightning strike twice?
Always.
Okay.
I always think when things like the Smiler ride at Alton Towers, and when there's big accidents at theme parks, I always think the best time to go to a theme park is after one of those incidents have happened, because they will be on heightened awareness. And sometimes you could think, maybe that will apply to using technology tools as well, but I don't think so with their response. So I don't think now would be the safest time, because they're just they haven't responded in a nice way.
Yeah, I'm sure this exact problem won't happen again, but you're right. It's more the response, their approach to the response, and the time taken. It's concerning if something like this were to happen again.
Totally. Yeah, it's a shame. I used Travis like 6 or 7 years ago, and yeah, it was cute, and the UI was quite nice around then. Like, yeah, sometimes the CD tools, UI isn't always like as nice as you'd like. And yeah, I remember Travis's being particularly nice, but yeah.
I mean, every CI system is like heavy and slightly rickety, isn't it? I've never met one that was just perfect at everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And as well, they can get blamed for a lot of things that aren't their problem. So we use Jenkins at work, and I remember we were having problems with like some of the builds and stuff like that. And, you know, the first thing is like, well, it's the CI tool's fault. It's really stupid. I hate it. And it's like, no, we need to fix our tests and the code and stuff like that. And moving off to another system, we'll move the things. And yeah, Jenkins is old and clanky sometimes, but it bloody works and it runs stuff. Yeah, it's quite funny. Okay, so yeah, happier security news. So this is a really great story from Microsoft this week. So they have enabled passwordless accounts for business users this week, which allows users to log in via the Microsoft Authenticator app on their mobile devices. They said that they are far more secure than passwords, which can be guessed or stolen, as we all know. Have you been pwned, like pwned? We all know about that. We see everyone's passwords in that all the time. So if you actually lose access to the device, users can still log on using face recognition if they have a compatible laptop or special camera, a physical security key. I assume they're referring to a YubiKey there, but I'm not sure. Or as a last resort, because we know this is the least secure, email or SMS. They've also made it clear, like did a bit of teaching their users that this is a far more secure way of logging onto accounts. And so the BBC article had a quote from Professor Alan Woodward, who is part of a research team who investigates passwordless authentication at the University of Surrey. And Alan made the point that passwords are a decades-old concept, and it should be time to start looking for something different. And this always makes me think, I used to have a development manager in 2011, and he was my first one. And he was just like the best development manager. But he said back in 2011 that passwords will become a thing of the past. And I remember at the time I was like, Adrian, what do you mean? Can you explain it to me? And he's like, it's insecure. Yeah, like we won't need them in the future. We'll probably do it via like fingerprint or something. He said at the time. And this is via fingerprint. So Adrian Hesketh is a wizard, I think. Yeah, totally. It's just always nice when you get to think of your younger self and someone said something that you're like very intrigued in. So yeah, Neil, what's your opinion on this?
It's something of a seismic shift, but like you say, I think it's about time. I mean, passwords as a concept are susceptible to something like Moore's law, because the only way to make them more secure is to keep making them more complicated. Now, I'm someone who uses the password manager anyway. I don't know any of my passwords, but that's still having this whole thing is a cover for having better forms of authentication. And as I say, this is kind of a sea change in the industry. I remember anecdotally in the mid 2000s, the first time I saw a usability expert, Jacob Nielsen, who's one of the go-to people for UX issues, suggesting that maybe we should have show password buttons to let us see what we're typing in. And I was like, are you crazy, showing your password? But then it was the understanding that, well, the shoulder surfing is not the problem that it used to be. It's much better if you can actually see what it is you're typing in and make sure you're being accurate, because we're trying to make it the best possible experience for the users. And I think getting rid of passwords altogether is a better experience, as long as we are all able to keep our various authenticator apps safe. And mostly that's on our mobile phones, so we're unlikely to get our phone and our device stolen at the same time, you would hope. Or if we do, we'd notice. How long would it take you for these days to notice someone had taken your phone? But yeah, I'd be really interested to see, with Microsoft doing it, I assume this is going to be baked into Windows 11 in some way. But we shall see.
I think this is great. Passwords suck, man. So I have a Windows laptop I bought maybe like just over a year ago now. It's a very nice one. and it has the whole webcam thing, so I don't have to type a password in, and it's got a little fingerprint thing as well. And I think the new Macs might have a little fingerprint thing.
Yeah.
They have. I've got
You know?
Touch ID
I
on
think
mine.
it's great. I mean,
I always
Yeah.
have wet hands though, and it never works with wet hands. I'm always washing my hands, and so so I have to type my password in so often because like I always have wet hands.
Really feel the pain
But
of
with-
passwords anytime that it's on a device where they don't support some kind of like remote logon type thing, where, you know, if I get completely knocked out of my Netflix account on my TV for some reason, and now I've got to stick in 35 arbitrary characters using the on-screen keyboard, and there's got special characters and uppercase, lowercase, it takes like 10 minutes to log in. I'm like, there must be a better way than this, and hopefully we're on the way to it.
Because also you need new passwords for everything, right? You can't use the same password in 2 different places, right? So it's all, I mean, you know, now I don't know any of my passwords. They're all just randomly generated in my browser, and they're just saved to my, you know, whatever, my password manager. And anytime I need one, I just go in there and get it, you know?
So have you ever locked yourself out of your password manager?
No, that would be bad.
I did that earlier this year. I decided my it wasn't secure enough, and so I locked myself out. And I got one of the M1 MacBooks for work, but then I also have my standard MacBook, and then I have so many devices that my 1Password thing is on, and so I managed for like a month. But then I couldn't. So in January this year, the M1 MacBook still couldn't run like some of the front end stuff on it. And it was a pain in the ass. So like I was having to swap over to my other laptop to be able to log on and all this stuff. And eventually I ended up emailing 1Password and being like, please help me. and they can't get your account back. You just have to like back up and restore things. It's like the worst thing ever. So don't mess around trying to change your password on these. It's
I have
horrific.
I have a printed 1Password emergency kit, which is one of the features they offer that has all like some recovery keys on it. It's in my home safe with my passport, birth certificates, that sort of thing. My 1Password emergency kit. That's how much it needs to be.
I probably should, but in my chaotic ways, I don't. And like that was a very good example of the chaotic way I live my life. And I was just like, oh God. So.
But passwords time has come and gone. Let's please get rid of them. Come up with a solution, whatever. No more passwords,
Definitely.
please. I'm surprised you didn't pick the Fortran MVC news bite, Gwen.
Oh, that was cool. So my one of the front end devs at work was so excited about that because he's written some stuff in Fortran before as well. He's really into his like retro devices, like retro anything. And so like I should see what Stephen's up to with it. I bet he's doing some mad things with it.
It would be the ultimate hipster move, but for the general population, I think writing an MVC web app in Fortran is a bad idea. Please don't do it.
I tend to agree.
Competition time.
We have a winner from our Cook My Grub competition from last week, which was Tristan Lombard. I think we've contacted Tristan, and we're going to congratulations, Tristan. By the way, please spend your £20 Amazon voucher responsibly, like our last guest did. I think he bought like a giant thing of like jelly beans or something.
Ben bought,
Yeah, Tristan's gonna spend them on Virgil, his dog, his magnificent dog. So we should hopefully see some nice dog treats for Virgil.
And we should take this opportunity to once again thank our giveaway sponsor, Cook My Grub. That's cookmygrub.com or at cookmygrub on social media sites. This is an awesome service which basically hooks you up with like local, authentic chefs who can make sort of custom-made meals, whatever you like, and they're making food from all around the world. It's their big selling points, of course, that it's very fresh and very healthy, and the quality is there. It's very authentic. And on the flip side as well, they help people set up as like home chefs. So, you know, you can go on there and they'll help you set up a kitchen of your own. They'll help you sort out all the food hygiene and stuff you need to get going. And they're in parts of London. They're expanding to the rest of London later, and I think nationwide by the end of this year, which I think we're all very excited about. I'm certainly excited about. I like using these meal delivery services.
I would be very happy too. I'm very excited.
I don't think they offer gourmet dog treats yet, but who knows? Maybe in the future.
That is that's a niche market waiting to happen. You know, cook my pet grub. How about that?
That would be a huge market.
I think that's a winner. That's a freebie for you, Cook My Grub, right there.
Yeah, because like a lot of cooking pet food, it stinks, and if someone took that off you, that would be amazing.
And many people spend more money on their pets than they do on themselves.
Totally. So I went and got some pet stuff the other week, and the amount of toys that I buy for these creatures that they just don't care about. And I've got these 2 cats. They're quite old, but they should be able to play still. And I'm like, look, I got you something new. And they're just like, just pat me, please.
There's any consolation. Kids are the same.
It's so disappointing, isn't it? You walk in and you're like, look, I got you something. And they're like, I don't care. Totally.
So competition runs again this week. Thank you very much, Cook My Grub. And all you have to do to enter is like or retweet the tweet that we put out for episode 4, please.
Brilliant.
And I believe you've got some kind
anything
of
else from
magic
either of you,
automated winner picker tool now. What format did you build that in?
I do. So this is all basically what I was doing. I was trying to build like a full stack service where the backend would do 2 things. One, help us pick a winner. It's Node Express, and it's in the back end, React in the front. And the other thing was it would help us in the back end do our analytics. So it would be making all those calls, and then what we'd have to do is like we'd have to run like a remote deploy of our static repo and just pass it all the data along, which I'm imagining we can make work.
Full disclosure, it did also manage to pick my wife as the winner originally, and we decided that probably wasn't quite fair game.
No.
I mean, it picked her fair and square, but yeah. We don't want to seem biased or nepotistic.
No.
But I'm happy. This is all. There's nothing fancy in this code. I'm happy to open source it, share it. I should have shared it with both of you a long time ago, but I'll definitely be getting around to that this week.
Well, if you want it
that'll be really
cool.
Open sourcing.
Yeah. I'm just eventually going to give up and go, Neil, just do it.
The wash up.
That's the end of this week's episode. We were trying to make it shorter. Let's see how we did. So I guess we'll see at the end.
I'm looking at the timer up there.
We really appreciate.
It's looking close.
Yeah, it might be a bit hairy. I'm not sure how well we did. But yeah, so thanks again for all your feedback and interaction on all the socials. We really appreciate it. So yeah, keep reaching out to us. Thanks to our Patreons. Thanks to all the followers, etc. And please like and subscribe and get sharing that we exist. And yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And
thank you.
Good day.
You're all the best. Thank you.
Oh my God, I forgot that.
Oh, what did you forget?
Chris Chant specifically asked if I could introduce the episode by saying good day. So instead, I will end the episode by saying good day, Chris Chant.
Good day.
Good day.
Tech Team Weekly.